Hey, it's Danica Patrick. Enjoy this episode and use code Linux and save when you check out at GoDaddy.com.
Welcome to the Linux Action Show, Season 24, Episode 7. My name is Chris.
My name is Matt.
All right, Matt, shake off that turkey hangover because I want to tell the folks about the big show.
Gobble, gobble.
Up front, mea culpas. I know we said we'd be talking about Proxmox this week, but here's what happened, Matt.
All right, let's hear it.
Mint 14 RC came out, and I loaded it on the box I was going to be running Proxmox on. And then I got kind of enthralled with it, and I stuck with it. And then the final version came out, and I loaded that, and I realized I'd wiped my Proxmox installation, and I kind of dug it, and I was sticking with it. And I realized time was running out. So today we're just going with the flow, and we're going to review Mint 14. And I want to challenge some of your assumptions with Mint, because I've heard a few major pieces of feedback when we said we're going to review Mint, and I want to talk about those.
Okay, and address them directly.
Yeah, and I know you've tackled them before in an article in the past, and I want to bring those into the show. So that'll be coming up in the second half of the show is our Mint 14 review, and I want to talk a little about Mint and the state of things there. Yeah. Also, in the latter half of the show, huge mail sack. Huge mail sack full of mail messages that we're going to respond to, including the section that's a call out to the audience for help, because there's a few curveballs in there. Then, of course, we got the news coming up, but first, it's our picks of the week.
Woo!
All right, Matt. Now, I have a couple of really great picks, and thanks in large part to the Android pick that you provided this week. Can't wait to talk about that. But first, how about our Runs Linux?
Let's hear it.
Now, this one is, I'm not kidding you, a home-built biocomputer runs Linux and grows wheatgrass. Now, look at this thing.
Now, that is clearly multitasking at its best.
Picture, for you audio listeners, you have a tower PC with acrylic sides and then a good amount of wheatgrass growing out of the top of the case.
That's weird.
What's really great, though, is you see these cylinders they have coming down into the case. Yeah. Well, so this, I think they added this as a second part of the design, is not only do these cylinders provide water, spot for the water to go so the roots don't rot.
Yeah.
But it also absorbs the heat from the PC, and they found that the heat from the PC components warms those tubes up, but doesn't make the plant too hot.
That's interesting. So essentially, it almost acts as kind of an elongated heatsink of sorts.
I guess it does in a way, yeah. I mean, and it's beneficial to the plant too. And you see they're running Ubuntu right there on the machine.
Well, clearly, wheatgrass runs Linux. I mean, come on, right? That's a no-brainer.
It does now. This is actually, it's a little old, but I had missed it, and so I wanted to feature it.
That is really interesting.
It's very zen.
That's got my brain working now as to how that's dispersing heat. It's got to be the length.
And it's also just good for the plants, and it gives a spot for the wire to grow.
So cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. I kind of want one.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
And of course, it runs Linux. Of course.
Yeah. You could do spinach, and the options are limitless.
Now we have so much show today. We have much show, but we have things that you guys. I know, right? Don't look ahead, Matt. Don't look ahead.
I see nothing. I see nothing.
But look, before we get to that, we have to stop and say thank you to our fantastic sponsor, GoDaddy.com. Now, I was just talking to GoDaddy just this Saturday because you know what? Saturday night. You know what I do on Saturday night, Matt?
You talk to GoDaddy.
I talk to Danica.
Oh,
yeah, I talk to Danica, and what do you do, Matt, when you have a beautiful, intelligent, capable, accomplished race car driver on the phone? You talk
babble like an idiot.
You talk about the zombie apocalypse. No, you say
that would be me. Yeah.
So we started talking about our wiki because we're going to make a wiki for the zombie apocalypse, and I decided I would just clip just a snippet from our phone call that I had last night with Danica.
Zombies don't run Linux. Stop them in their tracks when you use offer code Linux at GoDaddy.com.
There you go. See, I pulled that out there. Danica just wanted us to know that you could help us stop the zombie apocalypse if you want to register a website. And look, she said, if you're going to do a wiki about the zombie apocalypse, you need to make it secure. And I said, Danica, I know that. But an SSL, CPU overhead's almost minimal these days. Yeah. There's really no good justifiable reason not to have an SSL secured website. So I said, but what can we do to make this happen? She says, Chris, let me tell you something. I got a crazy good deal for you. This deal's so good, I printed it out on paper so that way Mac and I could physically lay eyes on it and prove to ourselves that it's real. Check this out. If you want to get an SSL certificate, you can get it for $4.99 if you use the code $4.99 SSL3 when you check out. But here's
Wow.
Here's the part where Danica's hooking us up.
All right.
Here's the part where Danica's pulling us up.
So it gets better. It gets better.
Normally where they get you on these SSLs is on the renewal. Not with Danica pulling strings. Check this out. Normally the renewal price, $6.99 per year.
Right.
If you use our code 499 SSL3, that renewal price goes to $12.99. Right there.
Wow.
Right there.
$4.99 SSL3. I mean, that's easy, right?
That's only a limited time offer. This expires on December 31st, and of course, that renewal price will eventually go up because it's just a promo.
It's just in time for Christmas, right?
Just
awesome.
Get the whole family an SSL cert. Or, you know, if you're like Danica and I and you're working on a zombie apocalypse wiki.
You really need to have to be secure because, I mean, what with the zombie bites and all, right? I mean, you never know.
Get a zombie virus?
Exactly. It happens.
Oh, my gosh.
It happens.
Oh, my gosh.
You never know.
So there you go. Thank you to GoDaddy.com. And, of course, if you don't need an SSL cert, but you just want to save maybe 20% when you're checking out, use our code GO20OFF6. But really, go get that SSL cert. $4.99.
Wow. That is a steal.
That's just crazy. $4.99 SSL3 is that checkout code. And thank you to GoDaddy. And thank you to Danica for supporting this week's episode of the Linux Action Show. All right, Matt, what do you say? Our first pick this week is our customary Android pick.
Let's rock this. Yeah.
Now you sent this one in and you said I got what? It's got a funny name.
I thought it was cool because while it has the funny name of specifying Ubuntu remote control, it is in fact usable for any Linux distribution. I don't care what you're running. This will totally work
as long as you support as long as your distribution supports SSH.
Yeah, which is kind of like I mean, that's a no-brainer. So that's an easy win, and it's cool because you can do a lot of neat functionality like controlling your audio, your media player, locking down your computer, locking the screen rather.
Yeah, as long as you got a Wi-Fi connection.
Yeah, you got to be connected to.
So it's called Ubuntu Remote Control. It is a free app. Wasn't it? Yeah,
it's completely free.
I got it.
I don't pay for anything.
But check it out. So we'll do a little live demo here. I've got my Cinnamon Mint system loaded up, and I thought, this is great and all, but wouldn't it be nice if I could control my Cinnamon Mint system remotely?
Yeah.
Well, turns out with this, you can, even though it's not Ubuntu like they have in the title. Of course, it is pretty close to Ubuntu. But anyways, so I have a set of custom controls here that I can modify, but they come with some stock ones in the application. And as we're going here, I can bring up certain things, like I could bring up the movie player on my system remotely, or I can start and stop music playback. So here, I'll hit play on the music playback, and now you can maybe. Of course, demo fails.
It was working fine.
It was working fine earlier. We did it before the show. All right, now let's see. I got it playing. Can I skip a track?
You may not be connected.
No, can't. Doesn't work now. It did work.
It does work.
It does work. It does work.
Demo fail.
The other thing that when it is working that's nice is it has an option in here to do a custom command. So anything you would execute on the command line, you can have it put it in here, and it'll do an SSH connection to your computer.
Exactly.
And see now the chat room's laughing at us now. It's like, epic fail. But it did work.
Yeah, no, it totally.
I played with it
live
last night too.
Yeah.
Now let's see. We'll see. Maybe I'll close the app and I'll
close the
it.
app and just for giggles.
Here, I'll oops, not that button. I'll even quit it out of the background.
There
so it's totally closed. And I'll open it up again here. All right, so now it's connected to that machine. Yep. All right, so supposedly I've reconnected.
This should be fine now.
Now, if I hit the lock button on this remote control,
that would then lock your screen.
Yeah, it doesn't. When it works, there it goes. Okay. It took a second. So there, now you can see without having to be physically at my machine, I can remotely, I can lock it. I can also unlock it.
So that was pretty fast.
Yeah, it seems to be connected now. So let's see. Now that I'm connected, can I skip songs? There you go. Okay, so now I'm able to skip songs.
That's cool.
And I just stopped.
You played with the screenshot thing yet, or?
Oh my gosh, man!
This is what I was kind of stoked about.
There's one button on here. You push the button, and it starts a screenshot background on the Android device. And of course, when you have a high resolution, it does take a little bit to pull down. But you can see. So 50%, 60%, it's downloading to my Android tablet a remote screenshot. There we go, 100%.
Yep.
So now I tap it, and it opens up it just opens up a screenshot of the computer that we were.
How awesome is that, right?
Yeah, that's really cool. So if you had kids on there, or if you were something you want to say, what's going on my machine right now? What are they up to?
Kind of a parental control kind of thing. Yeah,
I could see that. I mean, it's a little creepy. Don't be creepy, guys, but I could see that. Oh, you know what it was, Matt?
Oh, because you had your streamer going. Well, of course, yeah.
Yeah, because it was. So that was a little. Got our wires mixed. Is I have another application running in the background. That's my app demo. That it was sending the controls to. That's what was going on. So, anyways, check.
So things were happening.
So it was working. It was just. It was. I was trying to control Banshee, and it was controlling our app pick, which I'm about to talk about. So, anyways, check out Ubuntu Remote Control. It works for any distribution that supports SSH. And if you want to do the music control, there's one other package you have to install, but it's going to be in your repo. It's not a big deal, and it's pretty cool.
It's a lot of fun to play with. Yeah, check it out.
Yeah. So there you go. All right, Matt. Now, I teased it, so why don't we talk about it? My desktop app pick this week is free Tux TV. Watch recorded or live TV shows that are streamed over the internet. Now, it's dependent on an RTSP or RTMP stream being available. But the community submits the streams that they know about to the project, and then the project indexes them and adds them to this player, and the free Tux TV player. And so what you end up with is pretty much anything that ends up online ends up on this thing. So right now, using free Tux TV with no cable card connection, just an internet connection alone, we're streaming CNN News TV right here live. And the great thing about free Tux TV is it has an index for a bunch of different languages. So I just chose the US index, and it pulled down all of the web feeds it knows about that are in English. It has built-in DVR control, so I can record clips, I can rewind in time, I can pause if I want to step away.
So if you want to record a clip and maybe you're on your way to the bathroom and but there's a story coming out you really want to check out, you can hit record and then come back and watch it later.
Totally.
Just on the fly.
This is so awesome for Unfilter for me getting clips. And we'll check out what happens. Like if I know there's a report, like, you know, when they tease stuff in the news, coming up, and then they don't get to it for 15 minutes. Well, you know what? I'll just record the next hour and then I'll skim it.
Exactly.
You just punch the record button and you can tell it how long you want to record. So the default is 60 minutes. I'll just say 1 minute. You hit OK. It stops for a second as it rebuffers, and then it starts recording it in real time. And then it keeps a track of all the recordings. It can record multiple streams at once. It keeps them all listed here of the ones that are in progress. And it also shows you all of the previous recordings. So I've done Sky News because BBC News is in here. CNN is in here. There's tons and tons of local access. There's some adult TV in here. But what's great is as it's recording, you look at my CPU usage right now.
Real low.
It's nil. Yeah. It's nil. I mean, you think about it, I've got a TV video stream going. I've got a recording of that video stream going.
It's really not using
and my CPU right now is at 5, 6%, 11%.
Real reasonable.
It's super reasonable. So it's not, and that's because the software is intelligent enough to know that this is already a compressed stream. I don't need to recompress the stream. So it can save just the native stream, whatever codec it's streaming in, right to a file. Or you can have it re-encode if you want to OGG or H.264.
Sure. But you have that choice. And I think another cool thing is if you're really into live, I don't know, podcasts, for instance, you could, in fact, record that and watch it later.
And like I said, anything with RTMP streams on here. So that means like even King Leo and his Twit network is plugged into the channel guide. I've submitted Jupiter Broadcasting so that way we can get in here. But
that would be cool because I still think it would be awesome to be able to record the live show because there's a lot of cool stuff going on.
Wouldn't this be a great way to record the live show?
That's what I was getting at. I think that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I bet you can add your own feed too.
Because that would be fun.
Yeah.
You know?
That'd be a great way to record. So it's free Tux TV. That's all one word. And I don't know. I'm just flipping through the list. So here's Sky News.
Does it full screen pretty well, or?
Well, it's fine except for the
depending on the
video quality.
So you're dependent on the stream itself, which is usually going to be set to a smaller resolution. I imagine.
They are.
So you're going to pay the price. So you can do it. It's just going to be really horrible looking.
Yeah. It depends. Now this right now there's about 300 channels. So here's the actual of this stream. Here's the native resolution.
Okay, so you can see the native you can actually have it resized to the native resolution of each stream.
Yeah, it's small.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite small. So I don't know if I would recommend that. But anyways, check it out. Oh, of course you can resize it. So once you make it that size. So if you want to just have like a small discrete window on your TV. I mean, if you just want to have the news up while you're working.
Kind of nice, yeah.
I mean, look, we're talking. It's taking 35 kilobits of bandwidth a second.
I really like this app.
And
I like that I don't have
no
to
CPU.
Run it in a browser or anything weird.
Yeah.
I can just do it like bam right there.
Yeah.
Love that.
Check it out. Free Tux TV. It's in the Mint repos. I guess it's probably in the Ubuntu repos and probably other repos too.
I'm sure, because there's a lot of shared stuff.
And as you saw earlier too, the other nice thing is it works with all the multimedia controls. So if you're using like Ubuntu remote or if you're using a keyboard,
love that.
all the play pause buttons, all that stuff work on there too.
That's sweet.
Yeah,
I'm going to play with that when I get home.
I'm going to start using that to free Tux TV, and you can also find it at code.google.com/p/freetux.
What a great project!
I know, and I like too that you can just submit. You can just submit any RTMP feed you know about. Now they go and they validate it.
Yeah,
and what's cool is before you can submit a feed, they say, well, make sure that it works under Linux.
Oh, that's cool.
And they say make sure that you can do this VLC command on a Linux box, and then it plays back. Because if it doesn't work, we're not going to take it. We're not going to submit it to the directory.
I like the fact that they have that quality control in place. I think that's so important.
Oh, chat room says it is not in the Ubuntu repos, but I'll have links.
So that's probably what a dev file, PPA, whatever.
Well, maybe. I don't know. But I see TarGZs. I would say it'd probably be on its way. I don't know how old it is. Looks like they go back to January of 2011.
I would Google it. I'm sure that
November.
there's a PPA someplace.
Looks like the project started in about November of 2011. That's really cool, though. So free Tux TV.
I'll Google it when I get home, but I'm positive. I'm almost 98% positive there's a PPA.
I should have mentioned too. They also do web radio streams.
Oh no!
So it's not just video. So like you can see they have 104 French, 625. Wow. They have way more web radio streams than they do video. So if you like that too, and again these are like news and these are public access.
Well, that's especially if you're working in the background. It's just kind of nice to have.
Yeah. So anyways,
cool.
Very neat find that I got this week. And I think it's going to help out my Unfiltered show quite a bit.
Oh, I think so.
Matt, before we go, I want to remind folks that you can help support these shows by shopping. If you've been doing some shopping for the holiday season or whatever it is, and you want to take advantage of our affiliate system, then you can help support the content of our shows, keep us going without really impacting your budget. Just go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com, scroll down to the very bottom of our website, and down there you'll find links for Amazon US, UK, eBay, Netflix, if you want to get somebody Netflix for their holiday cheer. Because you know what? It's a great way to get somebody a digital gift.
Yeah.
ThinkGeek is awesome for stockings, Newegg, of course, for some gear. We also have Chrome and Firefox extension. If you add these to your browser, not only do you get more affiliate sites than we have linked down there, but then you don't even have to worry about it.
I love that. It's just autopilot. Bam,
Boom.
done.
Right? Just
done
does
deal.
It. Just does it. So thank you to everybody. And also, I'm going to give a mention just because during the holidays, we have a lot of donor drop-offs as people's budgets get tight. Or what frequently happens is they buy something and they empty out their PayPal account. And if you empty out your PayPal account and you miss a subscription, PayPal just auto-cancels your sub to us. And that starts to happen a lot during the holiday season. So I just want to mention we do take donations to keep us going. You can do $7 a month, $10 a month, or from PayPal to $5, $10, or a one-time PayPal donation.
Some good options.
So jupiterbroadcasting.com/donate if you do that, and we appreciate that. And also if you just check out the links to our sponsors, anything you can do to help us keep us going helps us stay on the air.
That's right.
All right, Matt. Well, all of that covered. You know what that means?
What's that mean?
It means we need to do the news.
Hey, what's new in the news?
All right, Matt, our top story on the news docket for this week. The Linux Foundation announces delays in getting UEFI issues straightened out for Linux bootloaders. Here, we'll go down here. This is coming from James Botley from an article over on ZDNet that the Parallel CTO, Parallels is a software virtualization company. Well, he's a well-known Linux kernel maintainer and the man behind the Linux Foundation's effort to create an easy way to install and boot Linux 8 PCs with UEFI. Secure Boot enabled is with Secure Boot enabled. He's sorry to report that we're still waiting for Microsoft to give Linux Foundation a validly signed pre-bootloader. This is despite all the efforts of the distros and everybody on the Linux sides had all their ducks in a row and lined up. But he says, you don't have to take my word for it, as he reports, after jumping through various legal hoops, you can't just upload. Check this out, Matt. You can't just upload a UEFI, God, I hate that freaking name, binary, and have it signed. First, you have to wrap the binary in a Microsoft cab file. Remember those?
Seriously?
Remember those?
Oh, yeah. Cabinet files are fun.
There is one open source project where you can create a cabinet file called iCab or LCAB, I forget what. Next, you have to sign that cabinet file with your VeriSign key. Now, there's only one open source project that can do that. And then, of course, if you don't have a Windows box, you could just use a Windows box, but the whole idea of having to get a Linux bootloader signed and workable from only a Windows box is ludicrous, so they're relying on these only open source projects to do that. The final problem, however, Matt, the file upload to Microsoft requires Silverlight.
Oh yeah, because clearly when you want to encompass a new operating system and get it all set and ready to go, you make sure to use a defunct project that is no longer being supported by the company that created it.
Why?
That's very important.
Why? Of course, now Moonlight doesn't seem to cut it. Even with the version 4.
Joke and Silverlight.
Yeah, even with version 4, the one they're working on, the upload box just shows up as blank. So you have to fire up a Windows 7. Now he did Windows 7 under KVM. So he was able to do that. So he's still able to kind of do it under Linux. When you get to the stage, you also have to certify that the binary to be signed must not be licensed under the GPL3 or similar open source licenses, in quotes. I guess he assumes that the fear here is of key disclosure, but it's not clear.
No, it's hurdle creation. That's what it is. So what's the bottom line here? And you can kind of explain this to me. So if I'm wanting, so is this going to really come down to the more of a virtualization thing, or is this going to be virtualization and actual hardware stuff? I mean, what's the bottom line here?
The bottom line is so the Linux Foundation continues to wait on Microsoft for a validly signed pre-bootloader. Until that happens, booting and installing Linux on any Windows 8 PC that ships with secure boot is going to be near impossible.
Awesome. Well, that's going to be a wonderful thing for there's a ton of them, all the Linux vendors out there. Get them.
Well, you're right?
As far as I'm concerned,
help sales for Linux vendors.
I'm sick. If I get one more question about how to dual boot something, I'm going to cry. Look, run it dedicated and quit. Just do it.
Yeah.
You're better off. You really are.
The unfortunate part is picture this scenario. Now, a lot of times, but not always, like you can't on the RT device, but a lot of times you can turn off secure boot at the BIOS level.
Yeah.
So then it's just back to a standard.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, well then that solves that problem.
But if you get a machine where you can't turn it off, or if you get an end user who doesn't know any better, or you get a user who wants it.
Right.
I want secure boot. I don't want my boot environment to be compromised.
Right.
Linux users are just there's just really no option at this point. And what's so frustrating about this is it's a Microsoft-created process that's reliant on Microsoft technologies that is now being delayed by Microsoft bureaucracy. And it looks like, after reading through here, after he created the cabinet file, he got a report back from Microsoft that it was somehow incorrectly signed, and they're going to get back to him. Because he's speculating that the problem is that the working secure binary key is getting signed by a generic Microsoft key instead of the specific and revocable key tied to the Linux Foundation. So the Linux Foundation is trying to do one that all different distros could use. And when he signed it, he thinks he thinks the system ended up signing it with a generic Microsoft key.
Oh my goodness!
So their system's not even fully functional.
It's just this whole thing's just dumb. Yeah.
And meanwhile, these things are shipping.
Yeah. My philosophy is like, you want a Microsoft box, buy a Microsoft box. You want a Linux box, and you want to actually support vendors that aren't giving you crap hardware and are actually going to be there to support you, and you want to pay that premium for it and gain from it, go that route. But when you start mixing your peanut butter and your chocolate, this is what happens, especially when you start throwing in all this, basically UAC type stuff for your BIOS. I mean,
well, here's the issue.
Crap.
It's kind of like the ACPI standard. At first, we were like, "Oh, Microsoft's working up this standard. They're dealing directly with the BIOS manufacturers. They're not bringing people in." And well, we're just we'll just use APM. We'll just use the system we have in place. We don't need to worry about that. It's not a big deal. Well, guess what? Over a period of 3 to 5 years, a while ago, the whole industry moved to that standard. And then Linux was left as a secondary. We still, to this day, suffer the fallout with our power management. I mean, we have a question coming up in our feedback section that's essentially... that guy is still suffering from problems caused by this bogus implementation of a standard. Yeah. And it's happening all over again, only this time it's locking people out from loading alternative operating systems.
It is. But I also think that this is the same pain that I've been saying needs to happen for a long while now. As much as I'm going to get a lot of grief for this, I personally feel very strongly good. Honestly, if you can't install Linux on a Windows PC, then honestly, you need to. I mean, I think it should.
You don't think that hurts Linux
I think not necessarily. I think as long as it can be tested in a live environment, they want it. Great. Get off your butt, quit freeloading, and support it. Buy the hardware pre-installed. Pay the premium. Pay the little extra, and get good stuff. Because honestly, I read all these forums about. Well, I'm going to go buy a Dell because I can say it's like, and that's fine. I mean, I get the cost savings, but you do get what you pay for. You do get the proprietary power supply. You do get the funky little motherboard situation you got, and so for me,
now the lockdown bootloader.
I just there's no value there, man. I'm sorry.
I mean, I agree, but it's kind of like telling people, but the problem is a lot of people come to the discovery that they want to try Linux after they've already bought the hardware.
Oh yeah, no, I understand that, and I think that they're going to have to find a way to make that experience possible. But I think in a lot of ways, the fact of the matter is, a live CD and things like that, or live CD especially, just because that's the most brain dead way of doing it.
Another wrinkle in your
does that not work?
Well, JB Viewer 4 in the live chat room was pointing out that in his country, there's not a PC shipping that comes with Linux preloaded. They're all just Microsoft PCs in his country.
Right. Okay. That's a wrinkle. That's a fair wrinkle. That's a very fair wrinkle.
But then
we're spoiled here, and so I'm griping at people here in the U.S.
Well, what you end up seeing, which might be more applicable to him, is I saw this last week or two.
That's a good point.
Kickstarter project starting up where they're going to create a compatible BIOS replacement for these systems, where you just take off the secure boot-based BIOS and you put on a community-created BIOS. Now that sounds a little crazy, but if it's doable,
then that would help the folks in his country.
And if it's easy enough to flash,
yeah, exactly. If they can do that, then that would be. And see, I would support that, because then that's taking back your computer. Yeah. You're no longer, because when I'm griping about this, I'm griping about people in countries where you have a choice. Because here in the U.S., I don't want to hear any whining. We got options on our options here. Come on.
And that's just the way it is.
That's just the way it is, and I'm done griping about it.
All right, let's talk about some folks who are saving money with Linux. Munich, we've talked about Munich before. They have their what is it, Linux? Yeah, Linux project where they're deploying Linux, and they've done it. They just wrapped up a little study, and they're registering a savings of 12.8 million BOMOs. That's I don't know why that's
BOMOs. Huh?
I don't know what that means.
I don't either.
Which is approximately 10 million euros, I believe. Thanks to the calculations and savings, this was a question that was raised by the city's council. They said, we want to bring an independent auditor to come in and say, are you guys saving us money?
Sure.
Or are you actually costing us a bunch of money in this migration?
Okay.
So they came in here and they looked at the Linux project and they said, we went through, we calculated, they said, we based this on 11,000 migrated workstations within the city's administration, as well as 15,000 desktops that are equipped with the open source Office suite, OpenOffice.
Right.
Now, they compared these to Windows machines and the cost of Windows 7, and also they factored in upgrades for Windows 7 and things like that, and upgrades to Microsoft Office. According to the calculation, with Microsoft Office, they would have so far incurred about 11.6 million euros in cost, just operating system costs alone. Microsoft Office and its upgrades would have been an additional 4.2 million, and when you factor that all together, the Linux project allowed for a further, by the way, savings of $4 million because they didn't have to upgrade hardware. So the Linux project not only saved them in Office, but saved them in a hardware upgrade. So if they would have had to go into Windows, they also would have upgraded the hardware.
Yeah, you kind of have to.
They think that if the city council had chosen Windows but still used OpenOffice, maybe that would have been an option. Save on the Office costs, but use Windows. The estimated cost would have been around 7.4 million euros.
Wow, so that's some serious numbers.
So they're saying they're saving 11 million right now.
Right.
And if they would have done these other things, they would have had all these costs add up. Overall, the project says that Windows and Microsoft Office would have cost just over a combined 34 million euros. And while Windows with OpenOffice would have costed just 30 million, so they would have saved 4 million. The Linux scenario on the other hand has the Linux implementation scenario on the other hand has reportedly cost less than 23 million. So at best case, so here's the brass tacks. At best case, if you would have gone Windows, but you would have used OpenOffice to save a little bit of money, you would have reduced your hardware. If you could reduce some of the hardware upgrades, the best case scenario for the Windows implementation, 30 million euros.
Oh, wow.
The Linux implementation, 23 million euros, and that's not even calculating ongoing savings and upgrade costs and things like that.
I'm really glad they're running this math. I think this is an important conversation.
Yeah. So just at its core, the Linux, because you're saving on hardware, you're saving on software, you're saving quite a bit of money, and they've done a really smart transition where they took the existing Windows boxes. We've talked about this on and off over the years on the show. They set up existing Windows boxes with open source software, Firefox, OpenOffice, Pigeon.
Ease people into it, yeah.
And then they went back through another pass and started putting Linux boxes in its place, up to the tune of 11,000 city systems and 15,000 systems total running open source software. But, Matt, it's not all roses.
No, there's a dark side to this, huh? All right.
So another German Linux transition project. Germany's got a few of these things going on.
Yeah, I think this is great.
They're saying that OpenOffice shortcomings are forcing them back into the wonderful, warm, embracing arms of Microsoft. Now this is
what shortcomings are they talking about specifically?
Well, let's see if we can
functionality.
Let's go through it and you tell me what you think. Now, I think this is Firebug, F-R-E-I-B-U-R-G. Firebug?
We'll call it Firebug.
I like Firebug. I think that would be.
We'll call it Firebug.
Okay, you want to?
Sure, we'll call it Firebug.
The city of Firebug in Germany adopted OpenOffice back in 2007, mostly replacing Microsoft's Office it had been using previously.
Yeah.
Now, here we go. The city council is, excuse me, the city council is now preparing to abandon OpenOffice. In a specific case, they say it was just too incompatible, Matt. It was too hectic. We would get too much files we couldn't open. But here's the one that surprised me. You ready for this?
All right, let's hear it.
The divergence of the development community between LibreOffice and OpenOffice is crippling development for OpenOffice. The council is writing this, adding the development of Microsoft Office is far more stable. And looking at the options, one product strategy with Microsoft 2010 is the only viable option, according to the council.
So let's go ahead and start shooting holes that right now. Okay, first of all, you're looking at OpenOffice versus LibreOffice, which is your first mistake.
Yep.
That's your. There's a lot more diversification in LibreOffice as far as the support's concerned. So basically, if one group of people drops off on that, there's enough activity happening that's probably going to get picked up upon.
Yep.
OpenOffice is about as active as a brick. There's just not. I mean, there's some activity there, but it's just not as much of a focal point. So they're working with very dated information. Secondary, you're looking at Microsoft Office as being the way to go. You're locking yourself into some very proprietary set situations.
I don't. You know what drives me crazy?
A lot of backwards compatibility headaches. It doesn't make any sense. The whole argument's completely flawed.
And one of the reasons why this was even originally brought up is because the concept is do we want a public office financed by public dollars, creating file formats that are locked into a specific vendor and a specific application? And they looked and said, okay, well, we're going to go with OpenDoc. We want to change all this, but. I do, as you know, if I put on my bureaucracy hat and I get in the corporate mindset of a 65-year-old CTO who's sitting at the city council,
right?
And I'm not trying to.
Basically, we're talking about folks that are going old hat. I mean, they got it set up at work.
In their way.
Yeah, they know what they know.
OpenOffice and LibreOffice is this child fork offsuit that's just silly. I'm not. I don't mean that. But
well, it's an unknown. It's an unknown variable. It's a new. They know what they're getting with Microsoft Office. So I think with LibreOffice, it's a little bit of an unknown.
Here's what I
don't know they don't know who they go to for support.
Here's what I
know how that works.
Now there's no way I can really verify this. But if I were a bet, man, if we were going to put some money on it right here, and if we could look into our crystal ball and figure out who was right, listen to this headline. German city says OpenOffice shortcomings are forcing it back to Microsoft. Now, I think a Microsoft contractor got in there and used this LibreOffice OpenOffice split is such a great wedge to hammer on if I'm trying to sell a certain angle.
Absolutely.
And then, if you cut me a great deal as the city on my Office licenses, part of that deal is I release a press announcement, a press release saying I'm switching to Microsoft Office. It's a give and take. And anytime Microsoft can get somebody to release this, then what they do later on is then they refer back to those press releases as fact points when they're making their really pathetic slides that we've seen in the past about why Office is better, and they can point to all these press releases that they themselves had a hand in getting generated vis-a-vis a contract for giving them a great deal, which really goes to show you that Microsoft knows their own product isn't strong enough to stand on its own merits, that they have to buy these guys out and offer them deep discounts to make them release press releases. That would be my bet. I have no way to prove that, but it fits a pattern.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty close. I'd say that's very close.
Yeah. Whatever.
I don't. The whole thing's just corny to me. I don't know.
I excuse Google Docs.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. No kidding. Well, I mean, if they have like point by point issues, like let's say opening large spreadsheets. I know at one point that was a headache with OpenOffice. That was a major. And if they want to point to specifics, that's a conversation.
Yeah.
But to say, no, that's not working for me, man. I'm sorry. And I believe the Microsoft guy comes and goes, I believe that actually happens.
We had a client. I had a client that was only running LibreOffice when it was brand new. And what they did, and this is not feasible for everybody, but there would be a person in their department that had Microsoft Office, and if there was something that couldn't be opened by LibreOffice, which did not happen very often, they would send it over or save it to the network share, and the person with Microsoft Office would open it up. And it'd always be like the scenario, that PC came with Office. All right, that'll be our Office PC. All right, Sue, can you open it up and save as a real document format so the grown-ups can do some work? And that's how you solve that problem. It's not perfect, and there's ways to automate it.
Yeah, I was going to say you could, there's a half a dozen, whether it be a batch file or whether it be actual software. I mean, there's a variety of different ways to do that. I mean, it's not. And I would automate
Maybe.
it. I was coming as a LibreOffice contractor, and I'd automate that bad boy. Let me solve this problem for you.
It just seems like in the world of cloud computing and really with the rate of mobile adoption and the decline of Microsoft's platform, it just seems silly for a public institution to be betting on that platform now. It's not long.
Bureaucracy.
It's a government.
They like familiarity. It's not. A lot of people I might know feel very strongly that it's like a good versus evil thing, or they're just being they're being pains or whatever. And it's not necessarily that way. They want the best. They're going with what they know.
Like Juan is saying in the chat room. As somebody who's migrated users, I started in the industry when DOS was still the primary platform on people's desktops, and I had to move them to Windows, or I had to move them to. you cannot imagine the backlash, the absolute outrage that from the very bottom people to the very top of the company, and how hard we had. The only reason we did it is because there was this mandate from the FDIC that we make the transition. Right, otherwise, if the FDIC had not come in and told that financial institution, if you don't make these transitions, we will not back you, they would not have done it. They hate it. That's how much they hate it. And sometimes IT has to take a hard stand and say, this is the future standard. The company will just be slightly realigning to this. It's not going to be the end of the world. Right. But, whatever. Let them waste
and I've noticed, various banks and things like this, and obviously it varies from institution and just various businesses in general. The age of the operating system, regardless of what it is, I've noticed that sometimes it's a little older than I might be comfortable with. I'm not going to go naming names, but I'd just say that it's interesting that I think that familiarity rules the day. I think that you
and momentum,
momentum, yeah, exactly, and motivation. All these things kind of play a part.
Yeah,
it's like, we can patch it. It's fine. We'll find support somewhere. It'll be okay.
There's a book, right? We can get it from Amazon.
Proprietary lock-in. We're not worried about lock-in. We're fine.
What do you say? We just do a quick Steam follow-up. I wasn't even necessarily going to throw this one in the news docket, but we got an email from a fellow Last fan out there who encouraged me to put it in the news docket. So I thought I'm going to do it.
Sure, go.
We got a note on the Steam message board. Steam will not be banning users if they use the workaround to get to Steam before they were accepted into the beta. What? Now, this is a one-off post. Good. And it could only be applicable to this guy, so you still have to remember that. But the reason why I bring this up is it sort of supports a conclusion I came to last week when we got feedback from people who said, "Hey, I was one of those guys who did the Steam beta workaround, and I just got accepted into the Steam beta now. I'm totally fine." And I thought, Valve opened up the forums to everybody. Yeah. Valve's letting these people use the workaround. So somebody just asked the question straight up.
Oh, it's good to have it clarified.
They got a response from a Valve employee. He says, "Hello there. Thank you for contacting Steam support. No, you will not be banned for accessing the beta without actually having access."
Short, simple, very straight to the point. Yeah. And I agree. I think that's what they're aiming for.
And I think we saw like Team Fortress hit the beta for even folks who don't have actual beta access. You can now play Team Fortress. So we're still seeing more games trickle in. It's looking good. But
and I think that what their goal is that they're kind of leaving a lot of this to the individual game developers if they want to support everybody. They can. They don't want to. And Valve's kind of taking an agnostic point of view. Is, hey, whatever.
And I think Valve's like, this is just a good sign. People are excited.
Sure.
People want to get in.
Makes sense. Good way to handle it.
Yep. And it gets in people's hands, and people, have the reaction's been good. So it's not like it's been bad PR at all.
I love it.
All right. So the Gnome folks last week, we mentioned they were dropping the fallback mode, the 2D mode.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And not too surprising.
No, I get the argument.
Yeah. So this week they announced, though, because one of the big pieces, other than, hey, I don't have 3D compositing, the other big complaints was, I use fallback mode just to get a classic Gnome desktop. Right. That's how I prefer to use Gnome.
Sure.
And, it's interesting. The Gnome project is being very receptive to that feedback. It's actually, I'm pretty impressed. They really seem to be kind of more and more meeting people in the middle when it comes to Gnome. And I think this is a really good sign. So, officially now, traditional Gnome desktop elements, the quote-unquote more classic type desktop elements. Right. Now, you still need 3D compositing for this.
Okay.
But the classic, menu elements and things like that, these types of extensions, some of these will be integrated and directly considered part of the Gnome desktop now.
That's cool.
Not turned on by default, but they're going to be there. And the reason for this is every time a new Gnome release comes out, there is a delay from when the extensions you love are updated to support the new version of the Gnome desktop.
Right.
And when you start to consider some of these extensions to be more core functionality, this kind of becomes a problem. So what they're going to do, whenever a new version of Gnome is released, they will now bundle in some of these core extensions with that whole setup. So in the future, Gnome developers will plan to include select Gnome shell extensions in the standard desktop, according to Matthias Klassen, who we'll talk about more later. Hope I didn't butcher his name. This will enable Gnome 3 to provide users with classic desktop elements such as a taskbar, application menu, and minimize buttons.
Like that.
What a concept.
I like it. I like it.
What great functionality to have included in there now. Now, not necessarily turned on by default, but included in there.
Well, and what's interesting is, and I've kind of gone back and forth on the whole Gnome situation, I think, the more I reflect on it, I almost feel like that maybe they need to cut the cord on some of the legacy stuff and just let the alternative desktops handle it. Let the forks like Mate handle this stuff. Not because I don't know. I like a minimalist desktop.
App menu and minimize. That's pretty basic.
Yeah, I guess maybe I guess so.
Application switching bar.
Yeah, but I mean, but truly, it's kind of like, I would have to play with it a little more. I'm just not really sold on it. I think that they're trying to cater to too many people. I think
you could be right.
I think they're going to have to really decide on which way they want to go. But rather than taking the hard line of tough luck, say, we hear you. Thankfully, there's some forks you can look at that are going to cater to what you need, and that's cool too, because then it takes the weight off their shoulders, and they can just concentrate on making the desktop the best for what they want.
See, the thing is I think that hard stand has failed. I think you see the decline of the. I think they're kind of acknowledging we tried it, and like they had to do that.
If they can keep it up and they can support what they're doing, then I'm fine with it. I'm just very skeptical of that, not because of them, but because I think that too many pots on the stove, too many things boiling. I don't know. I feel like there might be a little too much going on. So if they can keep it up, cool. But don't start it and go, oh, well, that was more work than we thought, and then backtrack, which is why.
Well, I mean, that's why they dropped the 2D fallback. Is because they kind of felt like
and that's a good start. That's a good start. Like I said, I'm from Missouri.
There you go.
I'm a little cautious. Yeah.
One more game story before we get out of here.
All right.
And then I got a fun, we're going to see where it goes story, okay?
Cool.
So the game story, we talked about it last week. Now we actually have a real true blue demo. Unity 4, remember the 3D engine game platform, not the desktop.
Right.
Added Linux publishing.
I love that. Yeah.
I did not grok how simple and how straightforward Unity publishing to Linux has just become. Game publishing to Linux.
I've not played much with it. No.
So we have right here a video demo. And in this video demo, this guy is compiling all the different assets for this new game that's being worked on. It's called Desperate Gods, and they're porting it to Linux right now. He opens up the Unity engine. He selects Linux. He selects an x64 build version.
Wow.
He chooses his desktop. He's under Windows. He's not under Linux.
Sure.
He's under Windows.
That's fine.
And he creates the location. Now watch this. We'll just do this in real time. So this is a game he's written for Linux.
Okay.
It was loaded up in Unity
specifically for Linux. Okay.
And it's designed for Windows.
Oh, he designed for Windows supporting it to Linux.
He hits the Unity button, he hits publish, and watch. You see that progress bar there?
Yeah.
That is building a binary for this project for the Linux platform on Windows.
Awesome.
And then when he's done, he's got right there a binary file that he will switch over to his Linux desktop. He gives it execute permissions, and the game runs. It took 15 seconds to take this Windows game and save a Linux binary version of it.
That's game-changing.
Not Wine, not anything like that.
That's full-on port.
An actual full-on port. There he is. There he just started the game under Linux.
Wow.
And the entire time we talked about that, he ported a game to Linux. He moved it over to a Linux box. He marked it as executable, and he's now playing the game.
So basically, as long as he's got access to his original assets as a developer, he's got asset access. He can actually then port that just by letting the software doing all the heavy lifting, taking away all the excuses of, well, we got the thingy that depended. It's just bam.
It's not. I think for the true blue open source crowd out there, it's not the ideal situation since Unity 3D engine is closed source, the development platform is closed source. At this point, it requires you to have Windows.
Yeah, true.
But for game developers,
I mean, because the end user's not the target here. It is for the developers that run multiple platforms. Yeah. This is kind of a big deal.
I agree.
Big stuff.
All right, something that I'm not so sure is going to be a big deal, but I'm willing to watch it, is the Jolla OS, which is the Migo-based. The Jolla is unveiling the Migo-based Sailfish OS. Sorry, the OS is called Sailfish. Now we've talked about them a little bit before. You guys might remember this. This is based on Mir. It's an open source distribution of the discontinued Nokia Intel Linux Foundation Migo project, with components of Nemo Mobile, a UI layer based on Migo handset UX. And this is supposed to be an operating system that will be available for devices in the first half of 2013. And we're getting a demo here of the UI functionality.
It looks pretty cool. I definitely like the flow. I mean, it's very attractive. I think my big thing that I keep coming back to is, entering the mobile market with something that's not established is very tough.
That's why I'm kind of skeptical.
If I was coming at something with an open source project that's not Android based or anything like that, I'm kind of going Web OS really.
Yeah,
it has a little more because there's a little more of a following there. And
this seems like I'm seeing more from this than we have seen from Web OS. What's cool about this too is the SDK is going to rely on Qt Creator.
Okay,
so, there's a lot of people out there that are already using that tool set.
That builds apps. Okay,
the fact that it's built on top of Mir and all of that means it's got true blue blue, honest to God Linux underneath the hood.
Okay.
You know, it's not like it's not running a VM.
Right. It's no virtual machine action there.
Like Android. Yep. It's all, you know, it's all a lot of stuff I like.
Right.
It's just
does it have that differentiating factor that makes people say, "Oh man, this does that one thing that Android or iOS doesn't do"? I mean,
it definitely doesn't. From what I'm seeing here,
but that could come about though, and that would be cool. I mean, one differentiator, as you pointed out, is that it is running True Blue Linux, and so
people could load it on anything they want, which is kind of neat.
Some freedom.
So it might be eventually. What about like I go
and
back,
it runs Android apps.
I go back to the original Nexus S. I think, you know, that's a great phone, but it really can't run the modern Android operating system.
Right,
it's just too much hardware requirements. But if you got rid of all that VM, you got rid of all that overhead, and you just put raw Linux on the metal of that thing, you might be able to bring that phone feeling right back like it's a brand new peppy device. And wouldn't it be neat if guys like you and I, if we had devices laying around the house like that, we just grab one of those and like we download our favorite Linux distro, we just download the distro of this and flash it to the phone. And Bob's your uncle, I now have a rejuvenated phone, and I'm completely bringing new life into this piece of hardware. Well,
and someone in the chat room pointed something out interesting that if I have no way of knowing if this is true or not, but if it in fact is true, that this can run Android apps. If it can, and I have no idea if it can, but if that statement's true, that's kind of a big deal. So then you get your Android app action without the Android overhead.
The other thing I think is kind of interesting is
that's very interesting.
They have a little Android UI in there, but if you watch, there's a couple things in also that a little bit remind me of Windows 8 or Phone 8.
Yeah, it does.
That right there.
Yeah.
That screen right there kind of reminds me a little bit of Phone 8.
The flow, the left to right flow.
Yeah. But I'd say predominantly it reminds me more of Android. But see these screens here,
that's interesting.
It's not bad. It's kind of like the best of both worlds.
It is actually where it makes sense. I don't hate it. I think that's the big thing. If you can, in fact,
that is actually a lot like Windows Phone.
Right exactly. Yeah, that might open up some interesting legal discussions down the road.
Well, no, come on. Microsoft loves Linux.
Oh yeah, that never happened. I mean, no one ever sues anyone based on the shape of things or how something looks, right?
No, Matt, that would be ridiculous.
Silliness.
If you could patent something like that, that would be ridiculous.
We don't live in that world.
Not in the United States of America.
No.
All right, Matt. Well, that's all the news for this week. All right, Matt, pop in the mint chewing gum. It's time to get minty. I want to talk about Linux Mint 14. And this review sort of struck me in the face. Boom! I didn't expect it. Just hit me right there in the face. I know.
Square in the noggin.
And I want to talk a little bit about that and why I wanted to just bring this thing onto the show this week and bump our Proxmox review. But before we get to that, we need to say holla to our buddies over at System76.com who are sponsoring this segment of the Linux Action Show. And you know what they did, Matt?
What'd they do?
They released a new laptop.
What kind of laptop did they release, Chris?
Oh my gosh, a gaming beast, the Bonobo. And this is why, Bonobo Extreme, and this is maybe why the time you want to go get it. They got a $100 off deal right now for the holidays. They also have $50 off the Sable Complete and the Leopard Extreme desktops, as well as free hard drive upgrades. I got the Bonobo. I bought myself the Bonobo gaming laptop. With Steam coming out.
It was a no-brainer. Yeah, right.
Look at this beast. All right. 17.3-inch monster. I'm going to get it with 16 gigs of RAM. I'm getting it with 2 SSD hard drives. Okay, it's got the backlit keyboard lights.
Multiple colors, it looks like.
It's got a serious trackpad. It's going to have a 1080p. I got the matte finish display.
Yeah. Well, it looks like a gamer-friendly matte pad as well.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's got HDMI out, so we'll be plugging visuals directly into the Wirecast machine so we can capture for the folks watching the show.
Love it.
I'm going to have a Core i7 and that bad Mamma Jamma. I can't wait. And it is going to be a monster of a game machine. I wanted something that I could have a ton of horsepower running Linux that I could move from my office to my studio, and every now and then bring it to the occasional client when I need a real powerhouse. Maybe I want to do a bunch of virtualization with 2 hard drives and stuff like that on a Linux laptop. Oh, and I bumped up the video graphics.
Did you?
I want to play some Steam games on this sucker.
We're talking NVIDIA graphics here, kids.
I'll tell you guys more about it once I get my hands on it. But I ordered myself the Bonobo. But go check out System 76.
That's awesome.
They're a great company.
Oh,
of course.
They're fantastic.
They build those rigs to run Linux.
That's right.
You don't run into other things like secure boot and crap.
There's none of that. None of that nonsense. And of course, they're always built down with thinking down the road as well. It's not going to suddenly become incompatible.
Yeah.
And they're not going to drop support like some other big name companies out there.
Oh, snaps. So thanks to System 76 for sponsoring this segment of the Linux Action Show. All right, Matt. Let's address why I continue my search for the ultimate desktop. Has Unity not yet provided it? Huh? Is XFCE not good enough?
Just not cutting the bacon for you?
Well, this guy over at there was a guest blog post over at Sipwise, and he touched on something. He says desktops are outgrowing me, and I'm worried about it. And he talks about how for him, and I kind of agree, Ubuntu 12.10, or I'm sorry, Ubuntu 10.10 had a really great setup. And all of the desktops from this era did. It was sort of when GNOME 2 was at its peak, and a lot of things were coming together, and it was great. He goes on to state that, you know, things have not, GNOME 3's not been great, Unity's not been great, KDE is not his thing.
Sure.
And I kind of feel like I'm in the same spot, so my search has continued. Now, I've landed primarily on Unity, and I'm pretty happy.
Okay. You made that work for you?
When Linux Mint came along, I was looking at it, and I was like, okay, I think the time for Mint has started to pass.
Right. It's green.
I think maybe, you know, with Steam coming out for Ubuntu, Lightworks coming out for Ubuntu, Unity 3D games being ported with a one-click button option to Ubuntu.
Although I would point out with Linux Mint, all that works the same way.
Yes. Correct. And so then, you know, when I thought about that, I started thinking, okay, well, if all that stuff's going to be compatible, maybe there's a few things in Mint that are worth checking out. And Mint offers several different flavors. They have a Mate edition that is essentially a continuation of the GNOME 2 experience.
Kind of
They have the Cinnamon desktop, which we'll be talking about today. I wanted to look at the different features that Mint was bringing, and I want to say, are they a theme? Are they a reskin of Ubuntu, or is this? Are they really doing something?
What are the differentiators?
And Cinnamon is interesting to follow, right? And they're bringing a lot of different changes to Cinnamon. It's sort of this blending of the traditional desktop with new modern features. So I want to cover some of these things, talk about what they're doing, talk about Nemo, and then say, okay, is this really a time for this distribution?
Sure. Okay.
So here we go. Off the top, I have Mint 1.6 loaded, pretty stock with a few theme modifications, and immediately you look at it, it seems very traditional. It's got your standard icons, you've got a taskbar along the bottom with your quote-unquote quick launch area and lots of different applets. And I'll admit it, I love my applets. I can't help myself.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm a big applet guy on any desktop.
Yeah. Mint comes across as an extremely polished distribution. You have your standard Mint menu. It's got a very fast launcher. I can type terminal and hit enter, and boom, it's launched.
The Cinnamon interface is fantastic.
It is really quite peppy. It looks very good. It ships with a lot of themes out of the box. Okay, all good, right?
Sure.
But is there anything here that's different from Ubuntu?
Oh yeah, probably the biggest differentiator for me, besides obviously the menu, is the way they handle their sound settings. When you click on the sound settings, instead of having to do a lot of dancing around, I click output device. If I have multiple devices plugged in, I can toggle them without opening all these extra windows.
Yeah, I also like right here from the sound menu, they build in the playback controls just like some of the other desktops do, but they do a really good job, and it's also a little cleaner. Yeah. They support multiple different video or media playback,
and they do with input as well. I mean, that's the other thing, is it will actually provide that functionality for you. So, and it's just a cleaner approach to it. I think it's nice. I definitely like that a lot. Another thing is, of course, you got the little hotspot up in the upper left to where if you want to bounce from
where you can. One desktop of course, it's not working on the screen today, but this is a really good. Oh, you know what I can do is I can do it with the keyboard.
Yeah, there you go.
Maybe
it's not. Yeah,
there it goes.
And it's not always flawless. It gives you different workplaces, but
you can generate workspaces on the fly. And then,
that's neat.
Yeah,
yeah, and it's really easy to do because you just pound a plus out. So it's got a nice workflow to it.
Yeah.
One thing that annoys me,
there it goes.
I would say, is the way they do their clock out of the box. Apparently, everybody lives in the military, or everybody's using military time. I personally find it irritating. But the cool thing is that if you want to, you can actually change that. It's not as easy as it could be because you do. At least I have to actually go and Google what the heck the format is. But for most users, I think that's frustrating. Yeah. So for newbies, I think that could be an issue.
One of the things they're doing is they've replaced the software management utilities that Canonical ships with. So there's no software center.
Right.
There's Synaptics in there, and they've made a lot of sane default choices. So one of the nice things is all of their applications for the software management up front ask for your root password or your pseudo password out of the gate. So as you're browsing, you don't continually get prompted for the password, and that's nice.
Well, and their software manager is. It's a hit and miss with me. It's light years faster than what you're getting with Ubuntu. But it's light years uglier than what you're getting.
It is ugly. Is it? Well, it's just you're right. It is ugly.
I mean, it's really, really functional. It's awesome for a minimalist, and I personally have no problem with it. Although because I don't really spend a lot of time in a software manager anyway. But it's it's very dated feeling.
It's faster. It pulls in ratings.
Yeah. So maybe it's a trade-off.
You know what I did? Check this out. I loaded the a Deepin. I don't know what the correct pronunciation.
Deepin, huh?
Deepin, maybe. Now, tell me what you think of this software center. This is available in the Mint repos. You can just load it.
Way better. No, that's one. That's
you already like it better.
That's what Daddy is talking about.
It hasn't even finished loading yet.
I don't care. I like it. See, and that's doing like what Pear OS does right there.
Yep.
And that's.
So I'll set that off to the side while that loads, because this is a very interesting way. Now, it's not fully functional under Mint, but it's a very interesting way to browse software, and it's just one thing that they make available because they're not married to you using the software center. They couldn't really care less.
No, they don't care. You can run Ubuntu software center in Mint.
You can. It's a little tricky because you have to change a few text files, but yeah, it's not big. It's usable. They have going back to Cinnamon. They have built-in functionality of Cinnamon that I find to be really compelling. Like they have window switchers that work really well.
Really attractive switching. Yeah.
A lot of the standard stuff that I experienced in a more quote-unquote traditional desktop is available here in a way that feels more modern. It feels like it's like their Alt-Tab switcher. When you switch between applications, you get this really great window preview, and they're live window previews of the application you want to pick from. I think that's really well done.
It's very slick.
Now, here's the other thing that it was really sort of gnawing at me about Unity. Is when I look at let's just look at my my processes here. Okay, a lot of things are running in the background, but at the end of the day, my CPU usage is continually lower under Mint and Cinnamon than it is under Ubuntu. And I feel like that permeates throughout the system in terms of performance. You'll notice on this list here, comp is not bouncing around.
That's right.
But like taking a continuous 4 to 10% CPU tax from me.
Well, and Cinnamon previously was definitely a resource hog. Now it seems to be much faster. I was running it in a virtual machine, which I did on purpose because I wanted to really give it as little room to grow as possible. And even with those limited resources, normally in older versions of Cinnamon, you go to pop the menu and you might as well get yourself a cup of coffee. It's going to take a couple seconds. But now you pop menu and it's instantaneous. Yeah, and it's got a nice transition now too. I like that.
It looks really good, and they have built in here. They have favorites and links to your quick things. The launcher is very fast. It's just as fast as Gnome do, which is a big thing for me. It's much faster than the dash in Unity.
Oh, definitely.
Which is
well, and here's the differentiator: is that personally, I think what's making Mint minty is more the desktop than Mint itself.
Yeah.
Some of the differentiators with Mint versus Ubuntu is, they have a lot of the Mint tools going from Mint backup to Mint Software Center. A lot of these things some stuff that actually Ubuntu does not have outwardly. For instance, being able to back up your package management with a GUI interface.
That is nice.
Yeah, there's some stuff like that. So, but I think for other like maybe Arch folks that want to run Cinnamon, I know they have like Cinna Arch, I think it is, and things like that.
I was going to mention that. Yeah, there is Cinna Arch, and it's been updated for the new Cinnamon 1.6. There's a lot of bug fixes. A lot of work has gone into Cinnamon. So if you're not really familiar with Cinnamon, and you maybe are not in total love with XFCE, and you definitely are not in love with some of the other ones, let's just talk about a couple of the things that have been introduced.
Sure, totally.
So Cinnamon 1.6 is full of new features among one of the most active projects in the Linux community in general. With this release cycle, Cinnamon delivers at an amazing pace. Its development was frozen in preparation for Linux Mint 14, so that way they can focus on stability. Despite that freeze, tons of new features. So they have a new on-screen workspace switcher, which looks really great. The new quick list application launcher is very handy when you have a bunch of windows open. Sure. The new notification applet is really nice.
Oh, it's
so this notification applet, it tucks away. Oh, I don't have any notifications right now, but it tucks away all of the things that have come up on your screen in one nice little menu with a very small, discrete little 1 or 2 indicator that tells you how many unread notifications you have. The other thing, like you touched on, Matt, is they've improved yet again, although it's still pretty much the same, the update manager. And one of the things that Mint does that's really nice is they assign updates to different levels of criticality. So you have 1, 2, and 3, and you can look at these and go, okay, I really need to install level 1 stuff. Right?
Exactly.
So that's nice.
And you can, and it's listed based on how much adjusting to your system you're really doing. Is this going to potentially tweak your system to a problem? It's a catch-22. You could actually end up foregoing important security patches by taking that approach. But
because it could be a big change.
It could be a huge change. But then on the flip side of that, so I guess coming full circle, I would say that numbering system was important maybe with more the cutting edge releases, like if you were like in cutting edge Ubuntu releases like 12.10, things like that. But if you're running a long-term release, I think it's almost counterproductive.
Right. But this is a 12.10 based.
Yeah. So and then it would make sense. But I think when you're so I think it's hit and miss. It's hit and I'm all over the map on Mint because I loved it. Then I've come back to other distributions based on Ubuntu, and I'm all over the map. I think for me it's the underpinnings that really make it to where you pick the desktop you like, you pick the whether it's an Arch based distribution or an Ubuntu based distribution or whatever it may be, and you put it together the way it works best for you. I just don't think it's one size fits all. I don't know.
They're claiming over 800 changes in Cinnamon. They're saying that the changelog is 2.3 times the size of the 1.4 release. It's hard to describe. They're saying to put into words the amount of new features. So many new features. Cinnamon 1.6 is almost like a totally new desktop in some respects.
Yeah, it's really good.
So Cinnamon's great. Cinnamon is coupled with Nemo.
Okay.
Nemo is the Mint project's fork of the Nautilus file manager. You'll notice something. In my file manager right here, first of all, it looks great.
Yeah, it looks gorgeous.
Second of all, it has all of the buttons it should. Third of all, it has a little frickin' location, so I can type in, like if I want to go install a theme, I can type in .local/share/cinnamon, and it'll tab complete, and there's my freaking path right there, Nautilus. The fact that this is getting removed drives that crap out of me.
Yep.
And it's one of the reasons why Canonical held back Nautilus in Gnome 12.10, in Ubuntu 12.10.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons why Mint has forked it. It's nice. It looks very good.
Definitely.
It performs, it's obviously early days. It performs just like old Nautilus did with a few nice little tweaks. And I think that's where Mint 14 ends up for me.
Sure.
Is if you're not happy where Canonical's taking Unity, you don't like the Amazon search, and even though you can go turn it off, maybe it just rubs you the wrong way. And maybe you're a little concerned about Unity performance issues when you're gaming, things like that. I loaded Steam games on here. I had a couple of things not start correctly.
Oh, okay.
They say, you're not on Ubuntu. But I think with a few text file tweaks that these things are reading, I think it would start up just fine. So that's where I want to take this next.
Okay. Yeah, I like it. I like what they're doing. I could see myself using Cinnamon on other desktops.
On other distros?
Yeah, on other distros and other desktop. Well, on other distributions, and maybe bouncing between different desktop environments.
Well, I don't know. I'm really. It's tight. It's a tough call for me. I mean, you look at something like CineArch, and I kind of go, geez, maybe that's something I should check out because CineArch. If you don't want to use Ubuntu now.
Yeah, so that's the beauty of it, is because it's for me, like I know folks that are really into the Arch base. They're not so concerned about what's, they'll bounce between desktop environments, or they're really into the Ubuntu base like I am. I'm really into the packages. I'm really into all the access there. But I tend to bounce around my desktop environments a little bit.
That's where I am. Yeah. So here's the thing. People out there have said, well, Mint is just a reskin of Ubuntu. Why would I bother? Yeah, and I want to flip it on its head.
Yeah, no, it's not.
I think the fact that Mint is based on Ubuntu is its strongest asset.
Yeah.
Because you then collect all of the benefits of the Ubuntu base, compatibility with the applications that we all want that are finally coming to Linux desktop. But you get a desktop environment that is obviously designed to be... What strikes me about Cinnamon is it's technically advanced. And maybe this is because of just the age, but I can go into troubleshooting here and I get restart Cinnamon. I also get access.
I love that. Yeah, that's functionality that just
quick access to all my settings. It's just right here from the menu. If I want to change my themes, they're just right here. This isn't cluttered up. This doesn't make it hard to use. This doesn't make it a bad user experience. For a technical user, this is freaking awesome. It's all right here. It's all a click away. It feels like a very, very polished expert's desktop.
Oh, and everything feels very unified.
Yes. And I think, wow, so I can get all the compatibility of Ubuntu with these flares of good taste that have been added on top. And that brings me to my next point, is Clem, right? That's his name?
Clem.
The founder of the Mint project.
Yep.
All of this seems to ride on him. And I would say that my biggest fear, what would actually prevent me from maybe using Mint full-time, would be the fear that they're going to break away from Ubuntu.
Exactly.
It seems like that,
we went through this with Simply Memphis back in the day. There was a time, and it resolved itself, and it's not an issue anymore, but there was a time when Warren actually, there was talk of that potentially not being developed anymore. It was a short-lived thing. It was a fluke, whatever. But it was a one-man show, much like this. In both instances, there are other developers contributing, but it really centers around these individual guys.
And you got to figure he's heard for years and years and years. Yeah. Mint's just based on Ubuntu. What's the difference? Yeah. And after years and years, you got to figure that gets in a guy's head. Yeah. And he looks and goes, well, we got Linux Mint Debian edition. Yeah. Maybe we just take that and we try to fulfill the original Ubuntu promise. Right. And we'll say, I'm going to make Mint what Ubuntu was going to be, a nice, clean, sophisticated Debian desktop.
Sure.
that I think would be met with, like, if they just said Linux Mint Desktop Edition is our premier edition from here on out, I think initially that would be met with a lot of praise.
I think so.
But I think long term, it would actually be bad to the project, because I think one of their strongest assets is their compatibility alignment with Ubuntu, especially with Steam, especially with Lightworks, especially with games being ported from Kickstarter and all that stuff to Ubuntu first. I think the strongest asset they have is their Ubuntu compatibility.
Absolutely.
And if you move away from that, I think it actually makes the distribution a little more irrelevant, because it's everything that Ubuntu is without all the stuff you don't like a lot.
Exactly.
And what I would really like to see happen is to have the Canonical folks take their ego, set it aside, and sit down and go, what is it about this that this one guy and his team are accomplishing? Right. That after all of our hours of thinking, after all of our hours of developer summits, after all of our hours of grand ideas and prophetizing on what a desktop should be, why is it that when you sit down in front of a Linux Mint machine, it feels like the most Mac polish on a Linux desktop you've seen? And I know some people are going to hate that, but it feels so...
The flow, not the
layout. It feels so cohesive. It feels so integrated. It feels so polished. It feels... It feels like somebody with extraordinary taste went through and thought about every single detail of this operating system and said, I think it should be like this and not like that. And Clem and his team have that luxury because they're basing it on top of the work the Ubuntu project is doing, just like Ubuntu bases on top of Debian. So they kind of sit from a position of luxury that the Ubuntu folks don't. But I wish they would sit down, set their egos aside, and say, what is it that he's doing that we could do?
Yeah, absolutely. I honestly think that if it was me and I was running Ubuntu, I would probably, during the installation, offer the alternative of saying, hey, look, Unity not working for you, try the Cinnamon thing out. Literally just toggle the option, pull down the, because you can do that with an Ubuntu installation. They can get that Cinnamon desktop going on, and that would solve a lot of hassles.
Some people said, is Cinnamon enough? Is it enough difference from Linux Mint? Now, we mentioned this guy's name either, Michael Clayson or Matthias. I'm sorry, Matthias. He's Gnome Project. He's a big mucky muck at the Gnome Project. He describes Cinnamon as a complete fork of Mutter/Gnome Shell/Nautilus, i.e., he considers it to be a completely desktop shell. And I agree. Starting with Cinnamon 1.6, it's clear why they went their own way. It's clear they're delivering on a very, very superior desktop experience.
It differentiates them very clearly. It's no longer a new wallpaper and some icons. It's a completely different experience.
It's very traditional, but it's also very modern. It's very good. And I think as long as and the other concern I would have is Clem going to burn out?
Right.
He seems to be involved at every level of this project.
Works very hard.
And he gets funding primarily from the community, which I mad respect. I think that's an amazing way to fund a distribution. He's had a ton of success, but you can work a person to death.
Yeah. Exactly.
And if he goes, where does Mint go?
Exactly. And if he has other consultant duties and things like that come into play.
I think his taste plays such an important fact. His taste is what Canonical is missing, is what Fedora is missing. It's this ability to say, we're going to make these default choices different, and they're better. And when you install packages and they come and they're pre-set up and everything looks just so good out of the box and everything works and you have all the codecs and it's such a frictionless experience, as the term is today, you really sit back and go, well, why can't anybody else do it like this?
Well, I remember back in the day when they had like Mint Backup, for instance. If I'm not mistaken, Mint Backup to Cloud was actually out, and I believe I'm right on this. I believe Mint Backup to Cloud was actually out before Ubuntu 1. So some of the stuff he's actually ahead of Ubuntu on.
I have to ask. And Mr. Mango asked me in the chat room. The big question came to me. So I loaded Mint 14 right here on this HP Envy.
Oh, okay.
Right? I got it right here.
Yep.
Everything works out of the box. Sleep and suspend work great. 3D acceleration's working with the ATI 5800 series. It is gorgeous. Here, let me unlock it for you. It runs cooler than Unity.
Right. Yeah.
Which is big for me in this laptop because this laptop overheats all the time.
Right.
The performance is. Watch, Matt. Here, watch. So this is on native hardware.
Okay.
On native hardware, the performance is so staggering. So we're rebooting the box.
Okay. So it's a fresh start.
You just watch. And by the way, on a fresh boot, like total system memory usage is like 155 megabytes.
Wow.
With Cinnamon fully loaded, the full desktop launch.
That's really good.
We're talking 155 megs. Maybe we'll check.
Awesome.
It's usually very low. Maybe it's 200, but it's very low memory usage for a full, beautiful Linux desktop. And I would love to see benchmarks.
That's really compelling.
So there you go. So now we booted. So we rebooted. We're back to the desktop. So I'll open up and we'll check at boot here. And also joins the wireless super fast. Everything works really good. All right. I lied. It's 400. Well, earlier in my testing, it was 200 to 160. Right now, it's 400 megabytes. I wonder what's taking so much.
Well, it's probably checking for updates.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, Mint updates, right? And it does. It's just like Ubuntu in that respect. So it's got to check its updates.
Yeah. So,
but yeah, once that's done, and of course it needs to do its job, it's going to run great.
I literally stopped, and it sort of brought. I sent you an email. I'm like, man, I know I was supposed to be working on this other thing, but I was just so impressed by Mint. I have to talk about it.
Right.
Linux Mint 14 also includes all of the upstream software changes made to Ubuntu 12.10, including the 3.5 kernel, Python 3, GCC 4.7.2, LibreOffice 3.6. It ships with Cinnamon 1.6, of course, and you could load it up with pretty much any desktop you want.
It's gorgeous.
It relies on the Ubuntu repo packages, which are usually very fresh and very fast. So you get really fast.
And you can add the Ubuntu PPAs. I mean, you get the whole package experience.
You really do. Sure. And you know, just one last thing, just to prove a point is. Here's two games. Now, here's a Steam game that under Mint that I couldn't get to load. I'll see if it loads now, but I don't think it will. It's called Dynamite Jack.
Okay.
And Dynamite Jack came up after Steam launches. It comes up and says something about your operating system isn't correct.
Okay, right.
And it stops.
Looking for a header somewhere. Yeah.
Probably some other games would do that.
Yeah.
With the other distros get.
I think so.
However, like Red Orchestra, OS Front, and a couple other games started just fine. So it seems to depend on the game developer and you know what they're checking for in Steam. But the idea that I get this gorgeous desktop that performs better. Oh, no, it is starting. My bad. I guess it's running just fine now.
Okay, cool.
So, well, Steam games run, right? Lightworks runs, right? Cinnamon's better in a lot of ways than Unity.
Gotta love that.
The only thing that's missing is just a few integrations from other applications, but overall, I am blown away by Mint 14. And
it's gorgeous. I mean, it's a really good alternative. There's no question about it.
I got to keep playing with it to decide when my System 76 arrives.
Exactly. And it will run. I've done that with a
yeah, it'll run fine. Do I take Ubuntu 12.10 off?
Right.
Put on Mint 14?
Do you PPA the Cinnamon? You know.
I feel like if I was going to install an operating system and not change it for 2 years, I would probably go with Mint.
Yeah, it's a nice stable experience.
It's very stable. It's very like all the way the desktop works that I have carried with me for my entire life still apply here.
Exactly.
And it's still sane. All my applications are down at the bottom. Only everything's a little bit nicer. And I just look at this and I think I am going to go with Mint.
Yeah, why not, right?
I think I am. I've made this switch before, and what I almost wonder is if I'll do it again. Is in the past I've switched to Mint until the next Ubuntu long-term support.
Right.
Then I switched to that just to see how things are.
Sure.
I'm impressed.
Right.
And then after a while, Mint just when I think Mint's out, and I think Mint's not really got anything for it anymore. They come out with another release, and I look at it and go, oh, holy shit, they just took everything I like and made it a little better. And took out all the stuff I didn't like. And everything's just so clean and works so well.
It's gorgeous.
So I think when my System 76 arrives, I will be putting Cinnamon on there. I'm going to continue to work. And if it doesn't work, I'll take it off.
Yeah.
But I really am pretty happy with it. And if you've been looking at Mint and you've got that's just Ubuntu, why would I try it? Then you are exactly the person that needs to load this up and check it out. Put it in a VM if nothing else.
Definitely play with it. It's totally worth the time.
So Linux Mint 14, Cinnamon Edition, big, huge, hearty recommendation from the Linux Action Show. Good performance, great default choices, fantastic apps, although I would love to see them switch to Chromium over Firefox.
That would be nice.
Chromium's in the repo.
Sure.
You install it, it comes green, all minty green. It's great.
Yeah, I love that.
I really hope that Clem never gives in to that monster in the back of his head that says move away from Ubuntu, because I think as Ubuntu becomes more adopted, it'll become one of Mint's biggest features, and it's not something you can build in. No, it's just something that is the result of what you've created, and if you switch from that, it'll be gone forever.
Exactly.
And while I think a lot of people consider it to be Mint's detraction, I consider it to be Mint's strength, because you get the great Ubuntu base, which, let's be honest, how can you really complain much about that unless you hate Upstart?
Exactly.
Maybe okay, you can maybe you can argue with that, but do it. Give us a shot. Let us know. We've already had a bunch of people in the audience try it. There's some threads in our linuxactionshow.reddit.com where people are talking about Mint. They're comparing their memory usage, and this. Okay, so this machine here, it's ran Steam games. It's been running updates. It's been running the TV game, the TV app that I picked this morning. It's been running web browsers. So it's now sitting at 1 gigabyte of memory. But really, if you look at how things are breaking out, what I really like is there's not like this penalty to some of the background things that I don't think I need to use.
Exactly.
It seems like it's a very tight, very lean desktop. Well,
Yeah, you can. I mean, you can absolutely say that. Hey, I can understand where the usage is going. It makes sense.
When you introduce features like Nemo and Cinnamon, and you start to bring them together, you're offering something that's unique, but not so far from the origination that you're off on your own Linux island.
Right.
So I like it quite a bit, and I really recommend people check it out.
Give it a thumbs up.
All right, Matt. Well, that's the Linux Action Show's look at Mint 14.
Minty.
All right, Matt, that brings us to the end of this week's broadcast. We got a few emails we want to get to before we get out of here, and a couple of quick follow-ups to our review we just did.
Yep.
You wanted to mention something about the menu.
One thing I wanted to mention about the Linux Mint menu that I almost forgot, and I think it's important to clarify, is the old school Linux Mint, I'd say probably 10 back, maybe 9 back, I don't know, going back a little bit, you used to be able to say, I'm looking for, let's say I was going to install Firefox or Chrome, and it would say, blip, 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 blip. It would literally kind of dynamically search for it and say, oh, here, click this to install it. That rocked. I'm sorry, but come on.
That was so cool. Maybe they'll add that. They should add that back. That was cool. Oh, you don't have that installed. So I was just playing with one thing during the break that I forgot to mention is they're using MDM, which is the login manager that's based on the old GNOME login manager.
Right.
And what's really cool about it is I bet I could just if I bring up the old Mint menu here, I think I could just type in MDM here. Yeah, it brings up login window.
Okay.
And what's neat is if you remember the great thing about GDM and now MDM is there's just tons and tons and tons of
features,
themes. Oh, and good features too. Network login stuff. But the themes, I mean, beautiful.
Wow.
And somebody in the chat room said, well, yeah, this is another example of Linux Mint forking for fork's sake. And, you could say that about Cinnamon. You could say that about Nemo. Now you could say that about MDM.
You could say that about all the Arch derivatives too. I mean, I think it's cool. I mean, some of those derivatives would actually get me to try Arch. So, hey.
And the thing is like, well, maybe they're forking because they are taking functionality out of Nautilus that I don't like. And the login manager is a very good login manager that we still could use that has a lot of great features. So
if they're taking what works and implementing it, then cool,
They do have some alternative menus that are available as Cinnamon extensions. Okay. So maybe that might happen.
Because I think even Mate lost it. I mean, like I tried everything I could find to find that functionality because it was so... It's just so brain dead, obviously awesome.
It was cool, too. Yeah. It was like, because if you didn't have Chrome, you just type, CHRO, and then it would say, oh, would you like to install Chrome?
Yeah, and it's like, oh, and here's all the little related doohickeys to it as well. It was a real nice time saver. So, not the end of the world, but whatever.
Right. Our first emails this week, Matt, and thank you for emailing Linux Action Show at jupiterbroadcasting.com or hitting that contact link we have at the top of the website. The first one, the first three are sort of call-outs to the audience. Maybe people could follow up. Every week, we have a feedback thread in our subreddit. You could put the answer there or comment somewhere you watch it. It'll be an exercise for the emailer to find it. But Cameron writes in, and he wants a little Pogo plug help. He says, hey, guys, love the show. Been watching for about 3 years now and haven't missed one episode.
Wow.
I'm just going to jump in on this one. He says, I recently bought a Pogo plug. He said, yeah, I know, I'm behind on the bandwagon. He likes it and all.
Cool.
But I've tried every resource possible to install LAMP on this little guy. But every mirror hasn't hosted the necessary files for quite some time now. Would either of you guys or members of the community know where I could locate these resources? For example, Uboot, Make2FS, and Plugbox. Thanks in advance. And if you are a Pogo Plug user and you know of a functioning repo or something he could point at, email him killbox1a, KIL box1a at gmail.com. Or maybe leave a comment wherever you're watching this. Because I don't have a Pogo plug.
I don't either.
But I'm sure if somebody, they must be a mirror out there that still works.
I'm sure there must be. There's got to be a community back there, doing something. And we can put this up in the show notes too. And if you guys know of anything, get back to them. Yeah.
Here's another one that maybe we could get the folks to help us out on. This one comes in from David, and he says, hey guys, stumbled across your show looking for some Linux support and have really enjoyed it. You try to be realistic and balanced and practical in your approach. While I greatly look forward to your doing more app reviews, would love to find some good desktop publishing apps. I've really appreciated the distro reviews too. Like Mini, I like the stability and support from Ubuntu. However, I'm not a Unity fan. Right. Yes, I saw your show on improving Unity, and while it did help, it's still Unity.
Well, the Cinnamon may help you here.
Yeah. He says, I'm currently testing Voyager Linux and Pear Linux, thanks to the show.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Okay, so here's the tough part. My 12-year-old has an Ubuntu 1010 box for games. We use Timekeeper, TimeKPR, to limit his game intake.
Oh, yes.
However, as we look at upgrading, Timekeeper has not been updated since 10.04. Are there any alternatives that work in Ubuntu 12.04? And this Timekeeper program is like it limits the amount of time users can use the system.
I've actually been because I do a lot of app review stuff. I've actually been looking for maybe a fork or an offshoot or some remote support somewhere in a forum somewhere for it. I've yet to find anything. I've looked at the Gnome Nanny to see if, because I know they had timekeeper functionality, and that thing was broken 6 ways from Sunday. Stay away from it. Do not install it. You'll have a nightmare getting rid of it. So I'm still looking. I've not found, because it's such an awesome app. Timekeeper's so fantastic. I've not found. You know, honestly, the only thing I come up with at this point is for everybody to put together a bounty and get someone to take over the project.
Or maybe if there's one out there that we just haven't found yet, you guys leave a comment and maybe you can help.
I'd love to hear about it. Yeah, definitely.
All right, John writes in, this is the last one for the audience, and then we'll just get to a couple general ones.
Cool.
Hey, Chris and Matt, first off, love the show. I'm searching for something for my soon-to-be wife for Christmas, and I'm having no luck finding it. I thought that if anybody might know where I can find it, it would be you guys or the Last fans. I'm looking for a necklace similar to a locket that holds a picture. But I want it to hold a micro SD card instead. I want to fill it with photos and letters from when we first met. If you guys could help in any way, it would be much appreciated. And just for fun, I'm the lead technician at Dover DE Comp/CompUSA, soon to be Tiger Direct, which runs Linux. Behind the bench, I run Ubuntu 12.10 on my workstation, and I also run a data server that houses all our tools and ISO files, as well as customer data. And we have a format, and where we also format and reinstall Windows all the time. The server is running on FreeNAS.
Nice.
Thanks again, and I love the show. So,
boy,
a SD card locket.
I mean, for my first stop, obviously, it's going to be Amazon to check and see what they got there. But
I'm guessing he looked, right?
Yeah, I'm sure he did. I'm sure he did. So it's such a specialty item. I mean, that's an interesting one. And I'm sure something like that probably exists, but it may not be real big in the American stores. Yeah.
Maybe people know. That is kind of a cool idea.
I think the community is kind of very geeky behind this one.
Very geeky.
Yeah, it's cool. Like
it. Get a raid bracelet where you put a bunch of bracelets together and it forms
I like that. That's cool.
An array of inexpensive bracelets.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah. I like it.
Art writes in, the desktop lives on, he notices. Recently, at an Apple developer conference, I was told that development for an iPad, etc., should be done on a Mac Mini at least. They informed me that the iPad was not able to do iPad development directly. Yeah. Similarly, at a Google development conference, I was informed to use the desktop for development and that I couldn't do Android development on an Android tablet. I hear a lot about the desktop being dead. However, it seems both Apple and Google desktops are how developers are able to get their work done. Do you foresee a time when we'll be able to develop on the platform for the platform? Thanks.
I think as we kind of migrate into moving... See, here's the thing, is I think that tablets have their place, because I'm not a gigantic tablet guy. I mean, they're cool, but I don't spend a lot of time with them. I think they have their place, but I think that there's always going to be a need for a desktop, not just because it has a keyboard and a touchpad
and
or
the development tools.
Yeah, the development tools, and also just frankly resolution, screen size, just certain aspects of it, and just a certain familiarity. That
I think
people have. Development tools are certainly a big piece of it.
I think it's likely.
But I'm skeptical. I think it's going to take some pretty...
as far as developing applications, as far as developing Android apps on Android, I think that's probably likely to happen eventually. They just have to make a development environment for it. But you're right. There's still a lot of limitations, though, when you're building software that the tablets can't accommodate. But it does seem like...
I'm going to do some mouse-sensitive work here with my thumb. I mean, there's certain things, there's certain functionality that I don't know.
It would be hard to code completely in a touch environment. You'd have to have a keyboard and mouse, at least for that part. But if you could dock a tablet or something like that.
Yeah, see, that I think probably being the most likely. If you get enough horsepower into it, the development tools, and you've got that dockable interface, it's kind of the Transformer, Asus Transformer kind of experience. Sure, why not,
Mongoose 961 writes in with a problem that actually affects me on this HP laptop running Cinnamon, or running Mint. Hello, gang. I saw that you are trying Linux Mint 14 this week. How do you like it so far? I switched and couldn't be happier. I'm running on an HP Pavilion G series with an i3, 8 gigs of RAM, and the Sandy Bridge chipset. The distro loaded up just fine and is running extremely well. Good to know.
Okay.
The only issue I have is during boot up. It automatically goes to full dim on boot up. He means the screen.
Oh, yeah.
I had this issue on 11.04, 12.04, and 12.10 Ubuntu, and now I have it on Linux Mint 14. Have you ever had this issue before? And how do you fix it? This is just an inconvenience. It's not breaking anything, but it sure is annoying. Now, I have this problem, too.
Yeah, I had this problem on a netbook, and it actually ended up being a grub fix.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so it was, I basically found it. I Googled around for it and found it, and I'll share that. Actually, I have an article on it.
Okay.
At matthartley.com. If you just do a search for EEE on matthartley.com, you'll find the fix that worked for that, and a variation of that same fix might help. I would back up grub before I tweaked anything, but yeah, it could work.
All right, so you got that fixed.
Yeah.
Because this is a problem that bugs me too. So I found another fix. Although I've heard some people say this doesn't work. Although people in the comments say it does work. So it might be.
It's all ACPI at the end of the day. Either way.
Yeah. This guy has a little modification you do to your Etsy RC local. And you change this. There's also this sys class backlight ACPI video max brightness setting. You go in there and you change like one line in this file, and he says that might fix it too.
Yeah, and basically what's happening is it's saying instead of using the generic setup, use the vendor specific setup. I mean that's really the differentiator based on my experience.
Okay,
is that a lot of times it's say no, you need to use the vendor setup and not this whatever out of the box thing that you are being put forth. So.
All right, well let's roll through some of our favorite ones here. The Real Awesome Sauce started a great thread in our Linux Action Show subreddit saying, "What are you thankful for about Linux?" Thanksgiving here this week in the United States, and Crash Benedict says stability and SSH of course. I like Matt LD says the Linux Action Show, good man. He says Quantum Funks is offhand. I think the most thing I'm the most thankful for would be the ability to mount and work with drives that other OSs have deemed useless trash. That flexibility is so
I've
nice.
Experienced this. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. The one that I liked quite a bit is just he just said very simply naturality put freedom to understand, and I took that to mean like. You can watch these open mailing lists, you can watch the plans, and it's not these big secrets. And as somebody who is intelligent enough to ascertain like the little bits of details and put them all together and put the picture together, I like having that ability. Whereas with Microsoft and Apple, I have to wait for these big reveals, and if they reveal something I don't like or I don't want to adopt to, like Windows 8,
right.
I don't have a lot of choices.
I completely agree.
But with open source, you watch the whole thing from start to finish.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, the freedom to understand is it's taking ownership in your desktop experience, regardless of what distribution you're into. It doesn't matter what it is. We all collectively are taking responsibility for our computing time and the way we run our computers, and that matters because, as you pointed out, you're not only part of the behind-the-scenes process, but we're able to collaborate dynamically in ways that other platforms don't do so well.
Well, one more I just thought was really good, but the whole list is here if you guys want to read it. I liked the Tannen JB123 says, I'm thankful for the freaking internet. The internet is literally built on top of Linux.
That's so true.
And, that's going to be really, I mean, Linux and Linus Torvalds creating Linux has been huge for so many reasons, but the way it has helped support and build the internet over the years, there was not a better time for an operating system like Linux to come along and be part of that. That's
right.
And it's awesome.
Timing mattered on that one. So that's a big one.
Yeah. I'm just flipping through our last feedback thread from last week's episode before we run out of here. And the one that I thought maybe we could address was from Bernard here. He says, I was surprised to hear so much praising about the Linux desktop on a tablet. Last seems like it's been quite skeptical and harsh about tablets, especially during the GNOME 3 Unity era beginning.
Sure.
Tablets are way better now and are more and more touch-enabled. Laptops are coming to the market as well. I think Linux desktop chose the right way, despite they still have quite a bunch of work to do.
Yeah, I would agree. I think for certain tasks and certain types of things, I think the tablets are awesome. As I mentioned during the live show, that my nephew recently received a tablet for his birthday, and I can see the attraction for a lot of different tasks, but I need a motivation to get excited about it or find a way to identify where I would use this in my own life. So I think it's case by case. I think it's person by person. I'm lukewarm on it, but I'm not against it. I'm very lukewarm.
Yeah, I'd say I'm now. I think they're still going to have. You're going to have multiple platforms.
Sure.
You're going to have your trucks. You're going to have your cars. You want to use the Steve Jobs analogy, Steve Jobs analogy, or whatever. Yeah. But when I held this Nexus 7 running Ubuntu, my next thought was, boy, if I could just put this in a dock, have a mouse and keyboard, I could really see something happening there. So we'll see.
Yeah, and see, because for me, the tablet, it's like it's gorgeous. It's the battery life and the feel of it is superior to a laptop. I am first to admit that, but it's missing that core functionality. You get power, power
and raw horsepower.
Raw horsepower. You get more the dockability stuff going on. We're good to go.
And ARM's going to keep getting faster.
Exactly.
They're going to keep getting more memory.
So I'll be warming up to it as it develops. There's no question of that.
Yeah. All right, Matt. Well, before we get out of here, I just want to give a quick plug. The faux show this week had a bunch of Linux Action Show. The majority of the show was we went through and looked at the audience's desktops and gave them badges for what they had on their desktop.
Right on.
The majority was the Linux Action Show. Sent in Linux screenshots, awesome window manager, Mate, Cinnamon, Unity, KDE. If you want to see your fellow Linux Action Show viewers' desktops and how they set up their Linux rig, go check out episode 117 of the Faux Show, the Desktop Screenshots Award episode. Lots and lots of good little nuggets in there, and you see different people's themes and trying to guess what distro it is just based on the icons and stuff like that. It was a fun episode.
Oh, it's a fun show. My wife and I watched this. It's a great show.
Oh, thanks, man.
We do.
Now, what do you want to plug before we get out of here?
Well, you can always find me at for a lot of great legacy stuff, including that brightness tweak, which you might be able to adopt to your situation at matthartley.com. And as always, I have articles going up at datamation.com. Just look for the open source channel, or you can go to the show notes and find the direct link to my authorship stuff there.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. You can find links to everything we talked about in this week's episode of the Linux Action Show in the show notes. Just go find episode season 24, episode 7, and click on that, scroll down past the video, and you'll find links to everything we talked about. Now, we want to hear from you guys. We need more emails. I didn't get to all of them, but I want more. So go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com, click that contact link, send in your feedback to Linux Action Show, or start a thread in our Reddit, because then you can get people chiming in. Go over to linuxactionshow.reddit.com.
Good dialogue.
Also, a great spot to submit stories and vote them up and down.
And we're both very active there. If you want to get our attention, subreddit's the place to do it.
You are 95% more likely to get our attention there than you will via email.
Yeah, I live in Reddit. I literally walk around with my phone taped to my head all day long. You know?
It's just like, it's something about the volume of emails that I get. Versus the volume in that Reddit.
Reddit's easier to sort.
And it's much just, easier to just sort and manage and jump in and jump out.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Linux Action Show, and we'll be right back here next week.
Marvin Martian.
Whoa.
Marvin Martian.
Whoa. Yikes. Yikes.
Probably off there.
There it is. Aftershock.
Feel the
Sorry, man. I hope there's not too much banana in here.